Welcome on in, everyone. It's Malliem back with another weekly horror story. Today we're adding Murder is Legal in My Town, Finale, Part 1, to the library. Don't forget to sub if you don't want to miss the next one. Thanks!
Spoilers, B. Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers!
Ignoring the girl, Kane continued on. The facility was huge, and I was slowly getting lost in each expanse of white which seemed to go on forever. Kane pulled me into another familiar-looking room. This time I found myself staring at wall people. Our viewers. I remembered them looking confused the first time I had been there. This time, though, each person staring down at us looked to be at the edge of their seat. It felt like years since the three of us had first stumbled inside this room, discovering our world, our lives, weren't real. My gaze trailed across each screen. I glimpsed a teenage girl around my age, gleefully watching us. "Who was that?" I whispered. Kane didn't reply for a moment, his eyes glued to each screen, monitors full of people staring down at us. That girl down the hall. He sighed, folding his arms. Yuna. I nodded. She's like you, right? No, she's not like me, Kane muttered. She's worse. His hands trembled. Yuna is what Ava should have turned me into, and failed. She's the product of completely resetting our brains to default settings once we rebel. Back to the mind of psychotic children. Yuna was always one of the weakest ones in our group. When she kept coming out of it, trying to kill herself when she got older, they sent her to Ava. I sucked in a breath. And that... Kane pushed past me and headed towards the door. Yep. That's what I would be like right now. His words wouldn't leave my mind as he led us out into the fresh air. Feathered sunlight hanging in a thick haze. Brightwood. Home. Well, it was Elle's home. Here we are, Kane whispered. Back to paradise. His voice was strained. We were running out of time. When I hit icy cold air, I inhaled sharply and allowed myself to finally breathe. Looking around, I never noticed that every tree looked the same, but the sky above was always crystal blue. We started back through the forest, retracing our steps towards town. Now that we were out of the facility, I pulled off my jacket and told them to sit down and rest for a second. The sun was shining above us, but I knew it wasn't real. Neither was the dirt we were treading on, or the trees stationed around us. Kane ignored me at first, insisting on finding Annalise. I pulled him to a stop, grabbing his arm. When he protested, I shoved the boy onto his knees, muttering that he was being stubborn. I attempted to create a makeshift bandage out of my jacket. Kane surprised me with a laugh. Ow. He rolled his eyes, swiping at his nose where the bleed was slowing down. I wasn't sure if that was a good or a bad thing. This isn't going to help. Unbeknownst to him, however, I was a Girl Scout when I was 8. Well, Elle was. But I did have basic survival skills. When I got a proper look at his wound, however, my stomach recoiled. The hole in his head was seeping a cardinal river, beads of red staining his scalp and dyeing his hair in thick clumps. I could see exactly where the penetration point had been, and, looking closer, seeing specks of white which must have been his skull. Ava's procedure really had dug right into the root of his brain. He should be dead, I thought dizzily, or under Darkroom's control. It made zero sense that he wasn't. I definitely saw those metal rods enter his skull, so how? Is it bad? I could tell he was trying not to laugh. No, You're lying. Kane chuckled. No offense, but you have the worst poker face. He shrugged. I told ya, Ava's brutal. He was right. This was something I wouldn't be able to help. Kane must have seen my expression, his eyes lighting up with amusement. Don't worry. He jumped to his feet. I'm sure there will be zero irreversible trauma. I inclined my head. So you're saying you're not going to collapse and abandon me? He smirked. Oh, so you're using me, huh? Something like that. When we reached the forest clearing, the two of us stumbling back into intense sunlight, we were greeted to a cacophony of clapping. Kane frowned, stepping onto the tarmac of the road. We were so close to being back to my house, back to my old normal. What the fuck is that? I found myself greeted by townspeople, but they didn't speak to us or even move. Instead, they stood eerily still in front of their houses or on the road and sidewalk, clapping mechanically. I recognized my neighbors, Mr. Jensen and the elderly couple living opposite us, even little kids sitting in yards. Kane's hand slipped from mine, and he strode over to Senor Kite, our Spanish teacher, who stood with the rest of them, his eyes empty, lips stretched into a wide smile. Clapping. Kane waved a hand in front of the man's face, but he didn't blink. Huh. Kane turned to me. So they're being controlled. I'd say so. He jumped in front of a woman with bright red hair, poking her in the forehead. Or maybe they're just really happy to see us? I couldn't move, glued to the spot. Why are they just standing there? It was almost like they were anticipating something. Turning to me, Kane looked like he was going to reply before a voice sounded loud and clear across town.
Really, Elle?
The announcer. Above us, to my confusion, the sky itself seemed to blur. I rubbed my eyes, but the scene changed, flickering into a screen. At first, I wasn't sure what I was looking at. Then I recognized the white room inside Kane's memory. There they were again. The line of children standing against the back wall. I saw 6-year-old Kane, panic twisting his features as he reached for a little girl's hand. He backed away, trying to run for the door with several other little kids before they were dragged back. The red-haired woman stepped through the doorway holding a rabbit. She grinned before slicing its throat in front of the line of children, their screams muted. Next to me, Kane's gaze was fixed on the sky, on the screen flickering with old footage.
What if I told you your life was, in fact, also a lie?
The announcer's words were knives perforating me, and my body gave out beneath me. I hit the harsh gravel which dug into my knees. No. Because that meant they weren't real. The people I clawed my way back to through my dwindling memories. My mom and dad. My brother. Annalise. I found myself scanning the footage for me. What if I had existed inside that room, one of the children engineered to become psycho? What if it had been my hand little Kane had reached for, and I couldn't even recognize myself? Could that really be it? Could this be their final bombshell? Elle! Through half-lidded eyes, I distantly realized Kane was gripping my shoulders, shaking me. A scream rang in my ears, clanging through my skull, and it took me a disorienting second to realize it was mine. I was trembling, screaming, trying to claw my hair out. I was aware that I was smiling, grinning. It was feral happiness. That fake kind of happiness. The twisted despair turned into euphoria that had been drilled into every darkroom OG's head. I couldn't get the thought out of my head that they were fantasy, that they weren't real. I still had pieces of them clinging to me, splinters I refused to let go of. Nick, my brother. I knew his face even when they had tried to wipe him away. I knew my father and my mother, the anniversary of their brutal murder. I saw their death, so how could they not be real? As if reading my mind, the footage itself twisted and blurred, and I was seeing my 6-year-old self kneeling on pristine white tiles. In front of me was what was left of a rabbit, its glistening scarlet innards spilling onto my clenched fingers. I smeared the rabbit's blood all over my face, laughing. The door opened. A struggling man was brought in and shoved onto his knees. I knew him. Something in my gut twisted and my stomach revolted. Dad. With his hands bound behind his back, he was helpless. I saw myself draw the blade of a knife across his throat. Blood spurted onto my face, but I was laughing, sticking the blade through his skull and then into his chest. I felt it, the slightest prick of pleasure running through me at the thought of my fake dad's, blood covering me. Fake. He wasn't real. Not real? I could feel my hands twitching, longing for something sharp. They weren't real? Elle, hey, you need to fucking snap out of it! When warm hands were grasping my face, forcefully turning my head, and the vicious leech of darkness seeping inside me was severed. I blinked, trying to find clarity. When I did, Kane's wide eyes were inches from mine, his hot breath in my face. "This is what they did to me," he hissed out. "This is how they broke me. Do you remember?" When I couldn't respond, he shook me violently until my brain was bouncing around in my skull. "Listen to me. I grew up with those kids. I remember every face, every kid. Yuna, Sim, and Luke, Mino, Ryan, Felicity, and Noah." He let out a breath. "But I don't remember yours." Something monstrous was building inside me, a feral fire catching light. I tried to get away, but he tightened his grasp. "They can wipe my brain all they want, Elle. I would remember your face." His voice broke. "But I don't. You don't exist here with us. Do you understand me? Because if you did, how would I have killed your parents? Your mother and father, Elle. Your brother. You know I killed them because you saw me and Sim do it. And I can't change that or try and make it better, but I can tell you it happened. What you saw wasn't fake or an illusion. I killed them, Elle. I fucking killed them. And I need you to know that." Somehow his words latched on, and clarity started to seep back in. The white room contorted into my brother's living room, and the shadow of 6-year-old me morphed into a teenage Sim. I didn't know. I didn't know until I was seeing it, until I was feeling that hollowed-out darkness trying to creep into my head and crack me apart. It was my very own Red Room procedure, and I'd been too blindsided to realize the screen of pooling red taking over the sky. Kane's voice was still there, an anchor grasping onto me and pulling me from the gnawing abyss. "Which means they existed, right? Do you hear me? Elle, they're trying to get in your head. They're trying to break you. But you know your parents existed. Your brother, Nick, he had your birthday as his apartment code." He trailed off, catching himself. I'm probably not helping. No. I know I'm not helping you. But you have a choice to do the opposite to me. You don't have to break like I did. Hey! He snapped. I felt my head slump, my eyes flickering. They had me exactly where they wanted me, and I had already been fucked up. Can you hear me? Elle, listen to me. You're not like me. You won't break. Break. It would be so easy, I thought. To just break. To become part of Brightwood and submit to the urge threatening to come alive inside me, twisting me inside out. He shook me again, and this time something snapped. I did know. Of course, my parents had existed. I had suppressed memories of them which sometimes found the forefront of my mind. I remembered going to the town lake with Nick and taking turns doing cannonballs into sparkling water with him. I felt myself completely crumple into Kane's arms, and the boy was surprisingly warm, tightening his grip on me. Listen to me, he hummed. I promise I'm going to help you find your name. We'll find out who you were, and... He paused. Maybe we'll find out who I was, too. I thought back to his memory, to the two mothers which had been cruelly torn from his mind, the older brother his younger self had adored. Swallowing the urge to tell him he did have a family, I pressed my face into his shoulder and allowed myself to fall apart. That time would come, but it wouldn't be in the middle of a fake town being broadcasted across the world. When the sky turned blue once again, the sun appearing, I figured the announcer was finished tormenting me. What are you two doing? Her voice sent my body into fight or flight, and I lifted my head, blinking through hazy sunlight to see golden curls tied into pigtails and that same wedding dress hanging from her, the veil awkwardly perched on a crown of curls. Annalise. I couldn't recognize her as my sister because those memories were gone. The girl was smiling widely, though something in her eyes was different. She seemed almost lucid. I could see clarity prickling in her expression, something I definitely wasn't used to. Before I could stop myself, I was jumping up, wrapping my arms around the small girl and pulling her to my chest, which ignited old feelings I didn't even know I had. She was so warm and felt safe. A million memories which were just out of reach imploded inside my mind once I was whispering into her hair and squeezing the girl until she squeaked. When I pulled away and got a proper look at her face, Annalise looked better than ever. Her eyes were bright, no sign of that maniacal grin which had stolen away her sanity. I noticed smears of scarlet decorating her lips and nose from her time in the laughing track room, but she was okay. Annalise was okay, and I couldn't stop crying. She was the little sister I didn't even know I had, and she was here. Nick, Mom, and Dad were gone, and yet my sister had made it and had been right in front of me the whole time. Hey! Annalise protested when I tried to hug her again. She stepped back with a wide smile. Where did you go? Where did we go? King was next to wrap the girl in a hug which lasted a few seconds, but it was enough. To my confusion, Annalise didn't pull away. She didn't hiss at him or call him a peeker. In fact, the girl seemed happy to hug him, squeezing him until he grimaced, pulling away, his hands going to his head. Dude, you've been MIA for days. Where were you? Annalise cocked her head. They took me to a room where I laughed a lot. She frowned. And then I escaped. Kane's gaze snapped to me. I don't mean to break up the good vibes, but doesn't she seem way too sane for Annalise Duval? He caught her eye. No offense, Blondie, but you miraculously being sane is too much of a leap. Even for Brightwood. The boy looked uncomfortable, and I knew why. He knew what he had done to her under Darkroom's control. I saw his memories, where he had sliced into her flesh with no mercy or remorse. Laughing. No matter how hard he tried, I knew he wouldn't be able to forget. And neither would I, after being forced inside his memory. Still, though, King was right. We didn't know this version of Annalise, her appearing sane and not screaming about peekers and wall people. But I think I was blinded by happiness that my sister was standing in front of me and not dead or stuck in that horrific room. She didn't have to be the sister from my old life, the glowing ball of confusing light entangled in my memories. All I needed was Annalise, who I knew her as. Even if Annalise was just another Brightwood creation and Kane Sinclair's personal toy to play with. I didn't think about any of that. Because she was here. She was okay, and right then that was good enough for me. Elle. Ignoring Kane's snide comment, Annalise's lips quirked into an excited smile. I think I found a way out. Her words sent shivers down my spine. Around us, townspeople were still clapping and the sound was driving me crazy. A way out? Uh-huh. She nodded with a grin and reached out to grab my hand. Even lucid, the girl's memory had been ravaged. She had no idea I was her sister or that our parents were dead. Come with me. I can show you. Before I could tug away, Annalise wrapped her fingers around mine and pulled me into a sprint. Hey, wait! Kane joined us, stumbling behind. This time, Annalise didn't spin and twirl, giggling like a child. The further we got away from the crowd of people locked into an applause, the more her expression started faltering, and I finally noticed her sharp gasp for breath, the sobs she was struggling to swallow. I found the way out, Elle, Annalise said in a whisper. Twisting to me, she smiled at us, and it hit me like ice-cold water. Her smile was for the audience. Was my sister over-exaggerating her part as Annalise? As we were approaching the high school, Annalise urged us faster, pumping her arms to propel us further. We need to be quick, or the peekers are going to get us. Peekers? I hissed out, almost falling over myself. Uh-huh. I knew it, Kane grumbled, struggling to keep up. She's still crazy. His strained breaths were worrying me. Every time I looked behind me, he'd stop for a moment, his hand creeping around the back of his head, glaring down at his fingers slick and wet with blood. When I caught his eye, the boy shot me a weak smile and wiped his hands on his jeans, forcing himself forward. Kane stumbled over, this time falling flat on his face, and I turned on my heel to grab him. He scowled. What'd I tell you? I'm fine. The slur in his words and the pallid shade of his cheeks told a different tale. Annalise, still running, turned to him, her golden curls spiraling in a sudden breeze which picked up out of nowhere. You're going to die, she said softly, her expression turning forlorn. I'm sorry, Jonas. Kane stopped running, or trying to run. I saw his expression contort into anger, and then fear. Pain. He wasn't trying to hide it anymore. Oh, wow. I've missed your riveting predictions. His voice broke into a laugh entangling with a sob. Well, yeah. Duh. He prodded at his head. Of course I'm going to die. Annalise's smile didn't waver. Well, You should stay here, she said. You're dying, and you're slowing us down. Hurt flickered across his eyes before he turned to me with an eye roll. I preferred her when she had barely any lines, but he pitched his voice higher. You're a beaker! Annalise, I said stiffly. He's not slowing us down. The girl's eyes shifted. Jonas Isaacs is a peeker, she said through a grin which I knew was hurting her. I could see the strain on her face as she fought to stay smiling, to keep the Annalise facade. But her real self, the one I lost, was slowly bleeding through. He did bad things to me, Elle. I don't want him to come with us. I can explain, I whispered to her. But you need to trust me, okay? As soon as we're out of here, I'll tell you everything. Annalise's stubborn eyes burned into mine, lip wobbling. She was definitely my sister. Her gaze flicked behind me. Oh, she said. I didn't think he was going to die so fast. Turning around, I glimpsed a body slumped in the middle of the road. Fuck. No, I wasn't going to lose him. The bastard still owed me an apology. He promised. With that in mind, I gathered him into my arms, trying to ignore how limp he felt, how cold his skin was, and that his flitting breath was slowing. When the boy's head went limp, hanging from my arms, I screamed at Annalise to keep going. She did. Annalise led me inside the high school and down the hallway I'd spent 3 years walking down as Elle, as a fictional character. Kane was far too light in my arms, and I knew he was running out of time. There was nothing I could do about his hemorrhaging nose but force his face into the material of my jacket and pray there was enough pressure to stop the bleeding. Annalise dragged me to the auditorium, and just like she had in the forest, threw out her hands. Ta-da! Annalise pointed to thin air, and when I followed her hesitantly, I walked directly into something metal. A door. I could have laughed. The door to freedom was right in front of us the whole time. When my sister pulled it open, sunlight streamed from darkness, hitting me in the face. Real sunlight. Not fake sunlight. Real, proper light bleeding through. I don't know what I expected, though this wasn't it. The outside world started with a fire door leading into a gravel parking lot in the middle of nowhere. Behind us was nothing but an abandoned factory, which had been converted into Darkroom's facility. I couldn't revel in being free or the warm air grazing my skin. Not yet. I still had a dying teenage boy in my arms. Annalise ran out into an empty road, waving her arms in front of a car. The woman who got out almost fainted when she saw Kane, but agreed to drive him to the emergency room. I can and never will be able to describe how alien I felt in a world which used to be part of me. Sitting in the back of a car which drove by itself, I was suddenly stricken with the realization that I was still Elle. I was free. I was outside in the real world. But I was still Elle. I was still polluted with her memories. Leaning into warm leather seats with Kane curled up next to me, I allowed myself to relax for a moment. I poked my back tooth where the device was still implanted. I thought about ripping it out right then, but did I want to? Did I really want to go back to a life which had been so brutally ripped away? One I didn't recognize anymore. Poking at the device, I made the decision I was going to attempt to extract it when Kane was okay. When there was no sign of Darkroom pursuing us, that's when I ripped the damn thing out. I knew the same thought was in the back of Annalise's mind. My sister ignored the woman's attempts to find out more about us, pressing her face against the glass, searching for anyone behind us. We weren't alone in the car. The woman's teenage daughter was in the passenger seat. I could hear her fingernails clicking on her phone's screen. Out of the corner of my eye, she pointed her phone at me. Luckily, there was an emergency room nearby. The woman offered to help us get Kane inside. I told her we were okay. Thankfully, Kane was taken from my arms as soon as we stumbled through the doors, screaming for help. I didn't notice I was covered in his blood until the boy was swarmed by people in white. Something snapped inside me as I watched them crowd around him. I blinked, and my heart started to race. All I could see was the red room, the figures in white wearing masks. I started forward, opening my mouth to tell them to leave him alone, before Annalise pulled me back, her warm arms wrapping around me in a reassuring hug. "It's okay, Elle," she hummed, burying her head against my shoulder. "They're not going to hurt him. They're good people." I knew that, though I still found myself following his bed all the way to the operating theater before I was turned away and told I couldn't enter. I had a half a mind to say I didn't care. I'd seen worse. I spent 5 hours waiting for news about Kane. Annalise was restless beside me, complaining that the light hurt her eyes before announcing she was going to get a soda. I wasn't sure what she meant. Neither of us had any cash for a soda. The waiting room was empty, a pristine white maze that reminded me of a morgue. Through large glass windows, I looked out onto an eerily quiet winding road snaking into an expanse of white beneath a starless night. I was trying not to fall asleep, the low hum of a nearby vending machine keeping me teetering on the edge. Blinking rapidly, I caught sight of a young boy. He was pointing his phone at me, not even trying to hide it. When the boy caught my eye, he smiled widely. "Elle?" I blinked. Annalise was standing in front of me with sleepy eyes. I looked for the boy, but he was gone. "Elle!" Stepping in front of me, my sister waved her hands in front of my face. "He's out of surgery," she said, smiling a little. "Do you want to come and see him?" "Is he going to be okay?" I asked. "He'll survive." The walk to Kane's room felt otherworldly. Annalise was silent by my side. She was caught up in thought, her nose scrunched up, lips wobbling. "So, are you going to tell me?" Annalise asked softly. Then she stopped walking and turned to me. "Why did you bring along the man who hurt me?" I didn't respond for a moment, drinking in each cavernous corridor. Annalise caught up to me. A thick stink of bleach hung in the air. "I don't know." The words slipped out, words that I didn't mean. What I wanted to say was that I wanted to give him a chance, that I forgave him. Instead, I pressed my lips together and swallowed apologies that tasted of bile. "I'm sorry," I started to say, but I didn't mean it. "You're not sorry." Annalise avoided my eyes, frowning at her shoes. "You're sorry I called you out on your BS. Annalise, do you think you're going to have a fairy tale ending?" she whispered. Her tone dripped with something sour, putrid, wrong. "That Jonas Isaacs the Peaker will sweep you off your feet, and you'll live happily ever after." "No." Annalise's mouth quivered into a smile. "Good." She slid her hands under her skirt and pulled out a knife, thrusting it into my hands. The blade pricked my palm, drawing blood. Her eyes were lucid somehow, clear as day. Then do the world a favor, Annalise hissed, her trembling hands working to force my grip around the handle. And make sure Jonas Isaacs never hurts anyone else again. My sister held my gaze, already judging me, already knowing what I was going to say, what I was going to do. I took the knife and gently slid it into my own pocket. But he hurt people, she whimpered. Ow! Jonas hurt me, Annalise. I gently took my sister's face, cupping her cheeks. I know he hurt you, I told her. I know what he did, and I know it hurts. My throat burned. Everything burned. My words felt wrong, phantom. But they were mine, and I meant each one. Annalise's lip twitched. Tears ran down her face. Then why? She exploded, wrenching away from me. Why would you even think about? She stopped herself, and then laughed. My sister backed away and swiped her nose on her sleeve. Oh. Her mouth split into a smile as realization swamped her face. Annalise nodded to herself, sniffling. Okay then, Elle. She spun around. I'm going to leave now, she said. Don't follow me. Annalise, do you know who I am? Nope. She walked away from me, and I found myself running after her. Annalise! I reached for her, choking down sobs. Annalise, I'm my sister. Annalise twisted around. You know what he did to me, she said, her voice rising. You know I'm your sister. You knew exactly what he did, and you still defend him? You still think? She laughed explosively. You still think you can fix him? Annalise closed the gap between us, her breath footing my cheeks. Do you want to know what he did to me while I was strapped down and drugged? Her words bit. When he took you away and I was alone with him, he made me forget you. He made me taste cotton candy and see stars. Beautiful stars. Neutron star collisions and pretty fireworks. She hiccuped. But Al still thinks she can fix him. Annalise, I said. Something rancid crawled through me. When did you get your memory back? I'll be waiting outside. Annalise broke out into a mockery of her earlier smiles. I hope your boyfriend makes you happy, Elle. Kane Sinclair looked out of place in a room reserved for the sick. He was restless, tugging at the IV in his wrist, a bandage neatly wrapped around his head. His eyes were fixed on the TV screen mounted on the wall in front of him when I slipped through the door. I'm watching a movie, he mumbled, flashing me a half smile. Kane patted the bed. Do you want to watch it with me? What movie? He smiled sheepishly. Not sure. but it's got a good plot twist. Kane arched his neck, looking behind me. Where's Blondie? She's getting some air. I lied, and his face fell. Oh. Kane's gaze landed back on the TV. That makes sense. I joined him on the bed, squashing in next to him and sinking into the warm pillows. I had so many questions, but right now wasn't the time. What mattered was that we were safe. Kane grabbed the small black remote and cranked up the volume. Is this a TV show? I asked, squinting at the screen. Kane was clearly out of it, enraptured by the screen, head cocked to the side. I like the acting performances, he said, absorbed by the screen. The main character? Wow, give her a fucking Oscar. I mean, her performance throughout this whole episode has been crazy. He shot me a grin. This may be too soon, but I'm kinda shipping the mains. Oh? I hummed, my eyes growing heavy. Any reputable actors? Not that I know of, he chuckled. Though I personally think these two are future A-listers. I can totally see the set can. Kane pulled me closer, his breath grazing the back of my neck, then my ear. The air seemed to shift around him, and his story reached its climax in my head. Do you like it? Kane hummed, resting his head against mine. His lips brushed my neck, and Annalise's words vanished from my mind. A quiet moan escaped me before I could stop it. I'd been feeling unusually flustered since walking into his room. Heat rushed into my cheeks, uncomfortable and impossible to ignore, bleeding into every logical part of me. The parts that wanted to ask questions. The parts stuck on edge. I hadn't realized just how badly I wanted him until he kissed me, his warm mouth meeting mine. It's a good show, Elle. Kane's kisses grew deeper, and he laughed, teasingly straddling me. Or, he murmured, kissing down my chest. We could do something else. A high-pitched giggle escaped me, a little piece of Charlotte clinging on. Stop! I brushed his lips once, secretly hoping he'd keep going. I'm trying to watch TV. Really? He chuckled, crawling off of me. You've been watching it for a while now. Oh? I leaned forward, focusing on the screen. Well, yeah, he chuckled. You are the main character.